In Hari Om, chapter 14, Arjun has a question at the very end of the chapter, and in verse number 21, Arjun phrases his question in this manner. In verse 21, he says, Kairlingai strin gunan netan atito bhavati prabho. Tell me, what are the indicators? What are the marks? How do I recognize the one who is a gunatit? Gunatit, atit, going beyond. Beyond what? Guna. What are guna? The guna are the attributes of our character, our personality imprint. Why do we have to go beyond it? Because that's not us. It is only Prakriti. It is something that is driving us. And therefore, when we realize that that is only for transaction in this world, and the world is also Prakriti, then I start searching for what is beyond this Prakriti, and that is my true self. So going beyond the self, not the self, going beyond the gunas is called gunatit. He says, oh, is that so? Are there some people who have actually gone beyond their gunas? Arjun says, if there is such a person who has gone beyond gunatit, let me know the marks, the indicators of such a person, so that I will have a self-check. You know, when we want to know about great people, it's because like we draw inspiration from them to someday be like them, behave like them, turn like them. So Arjun is also saying, tell me in verse number 21, Kairlingai strin guna netan, what are the marks? And then in the second line, verse 21, he says, Kimachara katham chaitam. What actions? Kim acharam. Kim acharam. What is the acharan, the behavior of such a person? And katham chaitam trin gunanati vartate. How does he conduct himself? And how? Katham. Trigunan go beyond. How does he go beyond? How? I want to know how also. And what does this person look like? Someone, is it possible? So Bhagwan says, so the three words he has used is lingaihi, which means indicators or marks, kim acharam, acharan, character, and katham gunan ativartate. How does he? What is his sadhan? That is his method of going beyond. In verse number 22, Bhagwan says, oh, that's simple. I'll show you some methods. But it's up to us to follow. Number 22. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Prakasham cha pravrittim cha mohameva cha pandava. Such a person, he looks at his own characteristics, which may be sattva, rajas or tamas, for which Bhagavan uses the word prakash, light, pravrittim, activity, and moha, that is tamas. Okay, he uses different words, but he is saying that when he is blissfully contemplative, he is okay with himself. When he is active, he knows he is active, he is in the rajas, he is okay with it. He is not berating himself or chastising himself, oh, I am in rajas. And when he is lazy and uninterested, just watching himself, finding himself in any one of these, he doesn't start wrestling with his mind. Such a person accepts it. Just as we can accept our own qualities, we must accept others too. That's why he says, na dveshti sampravrittani, na nivrittani kankshati. Such a person is neither hating nor desiring any of the qualities. Remember, we lesser seekers, we have to go towards the highest, sattvic first. Then we can say, oh, it doesn't matter. These qualities are coming on me. I am the ocean. I am the great ocean, and no matter how many years the ocean lives, it has seen millions and millions of waves rising in it and emerging back in it. And that's how the gunas are, just playing on the ocean. The moment this person realizes, oh, I am something beyond it, beneath it, the substratum, the very foundation, that is of course the Atma, the real self is that ocean, then I'm not worried. Okay, let the waves play on my surface. It's okay. So Bhagavan says, yes, he doesn't get either nadveshti na kankshati, means doesn't get agitated, nor does he start desiring, I want that kind of thing, that kind of attitude or guna. And he has also said I can notice myself. If I'm alert and vigilant, be in that guna and notice myself. That's all I can do. That itself actually, if we pay attention, that alertness and awareness itself is actually a great move towards spiritual life. Why? Because spiritual life demands awareness, attention, and focus from us. And therefore, being aware of our own qualities, that itself is developing the quality of alertness, and that can take us further towards the awareness of the ultimate, or the focus on the ultimate. So Bhagavan says, knowing your own essence. Once you know the essence, how does it matter then what's happening outside? Because you are nirvikar. Vikar means that which modifies. Nothing modifies in the Atma. And you are just a Sakshi. Okay. Then you can only then gaze at the Paramatma. Yes, beyond your gunas. The gunas are needed for transaction in the stool world or the material world. But beyond that, if I keep my gaze on Paramatma, on the highest truth, or the nature of myself, the capital S self, that itself is enough. It becomes my, the search ends there, let's put it that way. Okay, Kim Acharam. Now I want to know how this person acts, not I, Arjun is asking, how does this person act in the world? How does he interact and how does he behave in the world and respond to the world? So verse number 23, Bhagavan has said, Udasina vadasino gunairyo na vichalyate. Of course, he remains untouched, unswerved and unmoved by what's going on in the outside world, because he has understood that what is going on in the outside world will go on anyway, because everything outside has its own momentum and reasons and purpose. We cannot control it. The moment we try to control it, it becomes our struggle with the world. The moment you stop struggling to control what is outside, that is people or their actions or situations or objects which should be conducive to my liking, that struggle begins. The moment we loosen our grip on the world, oh, it's okay, the world doesn't belong to me and I don't belong to the world, that grip that we have on the world, mental grip, it drops, it loosens. And that loosening of the grip gives us so much relief and freedom and shanti that it's unbelievable. So he says, Udasinavat. Udasin is that kind of attitude, Okay, theek hai, I'm not holding a tight grip on this world, bhai, theek hai. Things are going on and I'm not going to try and control everything. Udasin. Some people translate it as unconcerned or insensitive. No, it cannot be that. It simply means Udasin, sitting above, sitting far away. So if things get too difficult and too rocky and you're having too much of a bumpy ride on the train, step off the train. What is stopping our mind to step off the train? It's because we hold on. ये ट्रेन मेरी है, ये लाइफ मेरी है, ये थिंग्स मेरे, ये फैमिली मेरी है, ये पोजेशंस मेरे हैं, दिस नाम प्रतिष्ठा मान मेरे हैं, एंड दैट इज द ट्रेन वी होल्ड ऑन टू एंड इट्स अ बम्पी राइड. बिकॉज जिसने आज मान दिया है कल वो इतना सम्मान न दे हो सकता है. द पर्सन मे जस्ट कोल्ड शोल्डर यू और मे इवन इंसल्ट. तो मान कैन टर्न इनटू निंदा which is अपमान. As easily as the world gives man, it gives upman with the same ease, and so that bumpy ride is our struggle with the world. What is stopping us mentally, if we have a choice, to step off the train and stand on the platform and watch the train anyway? Stand on the platform because that platform is steady. Then that mind will not be unsteady. The platform is still, rock steady. That's how the mind will be. So udasin is to step. Literally it means to sit above, but it can also mean to step aside. Step aside from all the noise and cacophony of the world, because we become part of that cacophony. Cacophony means wild, chaotic, meaningless noise. That cacophony becomes part of us. Yeah, we can step aside. Udasin, beautiful word. One of my favorite words, Udasina. Now, गुणावर्तन्त इत्येव योवतिष्ठति नेङ्गते. You will be नेङ्गते. na ingate, you will be unswerved, unswerving, you will be unswerved, unmoved, if you realize that this guna are only operating in the world. In order to be in touch with my true self or the Paramatma, in meditation, I don't need any guna. I don't need any sattvic guna, rajasic guna, tamasic guna. I don't need guna at all. Which means I can do without it. Yes, you can do with things which are not essential to your life. And when we are decluttering our homes or our cupboards and our wardrobes, when we declutter, we throw away those things which are not essential. So when we are asleep and we have this great sense of restfulness, no gunas are operating in deep sleep. In meditation, when we have gone beyond the noise of the world, when the mind is gone, let's say, that mind needs no gunas to operate, which means it's not essential. What is essential has to be there all the time. So I cannot do without my breath, my prana. I can't do away with that. So I know what is essential. I cannot do without my atma. Then the body will just fall like a clod of mud, which it is actually. So these things which are essential to my life, I cannot do without. I don't hang on to them. In fact, my attention doesn't go on my prana, my breath. How many times do we even have our attention on our breath? It is so in pranayam and in sudarshan kriya and in all the deep breathing exercises of yoga, the first thing they teach us is, can you focus on your breath? That focusing on the breath itself takes us deeper and deeper into the sukshma world, because the breath is so sukshma. It is not a solid object, and still we are trying to hold our mind on that very, very subtle movement of breath. It is not solid, and therefore that sukshma mind, which is focusing on the sukshma breath, sukshma subtle, then begins to have the quality of subtlety, the mind, and then is capable of going deeper and deeper into the subtlest realms of Paramatma. That is the subtlest, Sukshmataram as they call it. Now to engage the mind in that Sukshma, we have to disengage from the mind engaging all the time in the sthula, the material, the solid, the objects, the people, the noise, the cacophony, as I said. It's too sthula, it is too material, and the mind is engaged there. So the quality of the mind also has to transform. And then if the person realizes, Bhagavan is telling Arjun, see, you want to know the quality of that person has realized who the gunatit, the one who goes beyond guna at the end. He has realized that my guna are only operating in the world, and then he is not swerved, na ingate, last word, na ingate. So vatisthati, he becomes centered. Yo vatisthati becomes centered, and therefore one can observe the play, the merry play of gunas on the surface of our mind, like watching a scene from a balcony. Now, as I said, we cannot jump from tamas, which is the extreme form of darkness, of timir, of agyan, and laziness, even spiritual laziness. Who wants to read so much? I'm not going to go into, let's do something else. That kind of spiritual laziness, physical laziness, whatever it is, that indolent, that uncaring for our own spiritual growth, that is tamas. Now, from tamas, we can't jump right into sattvic. That's very hard. So all our civilization actually, through all our great masters of Christ and Mahavir and Muhammad and all these have been our peers and Paigambars and Buddha. What have they done? They have all directed us towards Sattva first, towards the Sukshma first, saying only that when you become Sukshma, only then you can come to that highest Sukshmataram, subtlest Tattva of Paramatma. Therefore, it has to be bit by bit. The whole civilization, which is actually a conglomerate of all our minds, all of us people, that civilization has to be lifted up step by step, bit by bit. So we have to move from tamas to rajas to sattva, and then as Krishna says to Arjun, guna vartanta ityeva. Guna operate in the world, that's all, and that's what he realizes, the gunatis person, and then he can even drop that. I climb up to the terrace on a wooden ladder from outside, and then I drop the ladder because I've reached the terrace. So then I can be udasin, the first word. I can be unswerved, last word, na ingate. Okay, so what are the other qualities? Now Bhagwan says in verse number 24 that, let me tell you 8 things on which this person has complete mental control. If we have mental control in 8 situations, then nothing can swerve us. We'll become na ingate. What are these? Verse number 24, chapter 14. Samadukha sukha swastha samaloshtasma kanchana. Samadukha sukha we know from so many verses which we have seen so far, and this seems to be a recurring theme in the Bhagavad Gita. So you saw that Samadukha swastha we had seen in 14th chapter, and in the 2nd chapter Dukkheshva nudvigna manaha sukheshu vigata spruhaha. Again Sukha Dukha unmoved in both, 2nd chapter. And Sukha Dukkhe same kritva labha labha jaya jayo, famous line from again 2nd chapter. Sukha Dukkha same is a recurring theme which Krishna seems to be hammering home, saying if you have control over not being swerved or knocked about by sukha or dukkha, even sukha, yes, because sukha means too much of excitement, and then aversion to the dukkha, because when the dukkha comes, and it will, because it's in a cycle, then when that sukha is gone, the dukkha already is waiting at the end. They are two sides of the same coin. So Bhagavan is saying, in both these situations, can you be sama? How many times he has said it? Sama dukkhe same kritva, even from 2nd chapter onwards. Okay, so this is first quality of this gunatit person. Yes, this is how the person responds to situations. When we say guna, with our gunas, that is our qualities of our personality, character, what are the things that we are responding to in the world? When I say we are using it to interact with the world, we are interacting or responding to what? Situations, objects, or people. Vastu, Vyakti, Paristhiti. These are the only things that bother us in the sansar, I'm saying, outside of us. And then we bring the sorrow from all these Vyakti, Vastu and Paristhiti into our inner self, and then it causes sorrow. So the response of a gunatit person or a person who is steady to each of these situations is different, not like us. So Samadukha sukha swastha means responding to situations in this way by being equanimous in sukha dukkha. Okay, what about responding to objects? You know, there are so many objects. Some are to our liking, some are not to our liking. Some we consider very precious, some we consider totally insignificant and not and worthless. What are these? So he says, Samaloshtashma kanchana. Beautiful line. Samadukha sukha swastha samaloshtashma kanchana. First line. He remains sama. Sama, the word actually means equanimous. When he sees objects like mud, loshtashma, kanchana, gold. Gold and mud to this person are the same. How can it be? How can it be? The worth of mud and the worth of gold is different, isn't it? Even a fool knows it, even a child knows it. So we are saying Samaloshtashma Kanchana doesn't mean that we behave like a fool and we throw away gold in the mud. No, not at all. This is all happening at the psychological level. We are saying that a wise person keeps mud in the place of mud. He keeps precious things or money in the place where it belongs, in the bank or in the wallet where it's used for our existence. And gold he may keep in the locker. He is not going to throw it in the mud. Yes, he knows the place of gold. He knows the place of money. He knows the place of mud. He is not a fool. But in his mind, he is not giving so much value to gold that is any precious thing. Gold here is a symbolic representation of all those things which we consider of great value. So it could be attachment to people, it could be attachment to, let's stick to objects. So things that we consider very, very valuable. So a big house or a bungalow or a farmhouse so he's saying that person doesn't develop an attitude of hoarding, of hankering for possessing it and increasing one's appetite for it. That is not what is happening to this person who says, okay, I'm okay. If I get gold, I'm okay. If I don't get it, I'm okay. But I know the value of gold. Let's not misinterpret this and say, oh, a wise person throws away gold in the mud. No, not at all. Now, his mind is not attaching a sense of greed and hoarding and increasing appetite for that wealth or precious object. So if I have a car, I don't say that I want more cars. Just because I have the wealth for it, I want more and more luxurious cars. So you know of such people who have hoarded a dozen cars, if not more, or 6 cars or 5. So if there's something they love, there is an appetite which grows with it. So if there are people who love, for example, jewelry, and they have a sort of great liking or a great appetite for diamonds or gold, you will find that every time they go to a mall or shopping, they are naturally, it's almost like an invisible gravitational force pulling them towards those shops where there will be diamond or gold. Diamond or gold, just an example, it could be clothes, it could be art pieces, so I don't know. So the appetite for anything material just grows and we are naturally drawn to it. A person who can say, if it comes to me, I'm okay. So today if I have a legacy and somebody has bequeathed, some old great grand aunt of mine, suppose she bequeaths her old house or some old gold necklace to me, okay, so I know that I am an heir to that property or that object. It's okay. I may put it to some use. I may want to sell it and put it to things which I consider more valuable for me. So maybe into supporting an ashram or supporting the swamis who teach the highest knowledge in the world, or whatever we consider of great value, that's where our wealth goes. But there are people who hoard and they have a big, and they keep an eye out for the family jewels. And they say ki, yes, ye kangan kitna badhiya, ye kada kitna badhiya, is it real gold? Okay, what are you going to do with it? Their attention is on it. So this attention and appetite is what Krishna is talking about. He's saying, Samaloshtasma kanchana. If I get it, it's fine. If I don't get it, it's fine. It's like Ram, who was told, one fine day you're going to be crowned the king of the kingdom and Ayodhya, and the next the same day in the evening he is told, oops, sorry, change of plans, you have to go to the forest for 14 years. So he says, okay. In the first place also he said, okay, Samaloshtasma kanchana, sama, completely sama in both situations. Now, just like children, the children collect so many things, pebbles and stamps and marbles and broken glass pieces and feathers and whatnot. But as they grow up, do they hold the same kind of value for it? Of course not, because they have grown up. You say, acha, ye mature ho gaya hai. So then they give it away to other children or to their younger siblings. Now, a person who has become spiritually mature, just like growing up, a growing child becomes mature, a spiritually awakened or mature person will say, oh, what am I going to do with all this gold? It's just metal for me. So then he wants to try and put it to better use. So just like children grow up, spiritual people grow to become more spiritual, let's say, and then their appetite for gold or precious things drops. So Samaloshtasma kanchana, Krishna is saying, is one of the marks, one of the indicators of such a person. If you see someone who is really not attracted to these valuable things, and if they come their way also, it's fine, then you know that such a person is gunatit. He's answering Arjun's question, remember? That's why he's giving the indicators. Now whatever comes in my way, sama, in dukha or sukha or stones or clod of mud or gold, and there are other things happening. My response to other experiences. Second line, tulya priya priyo dhiraha. Dhiraha, steady. Where tulya means sama. In priya apriya, that means experiences which we consider like to our like or to our dislike. Conducive to us, non-conducive. Anukul, pratikul. And everything we categorize into these two. Everything. Whatever we experience outside, we first thing we compartmentalize it and categorize it. I like it or not? It's conducive to me or not? And therefore Bhagavan says, Dhira tulya priya priyo. The one who remains equanimous in situations which are already anyway changing and transforming outside, remains the same. Say, जो situations आ रहे हैं कल बदल जाएंगे, फिर वो भी बदल जाएंगे. That is the nature of the world. One who remembers this has a bird's eye view of sansar, from the top, not getting involved too deeply. And then he says, okay, dhiraha, that person is dhira. So we have a third indicator according to Krishna for Arjun, who says, tell me what this person does, how does he behave. And the last is tulya nindatma samstutihi. Stuti, some people will praise you, some people will not praise you, and they may actually show us down. And very often people like to do that for their own reasons. They have some complexes or whatever. They like to show us down. This person remains tulya, equanimous. Why do some people do this kind of thing when they talk about when they want to show us down? Because they are comparing. A Duryodhan disease is what I talked about. Duryodhan was only comparing. कि ये इंद्रप्रस्थ क्यों इतना, how come it's become such a wonderful kingdom where people are migrating from my Hastinapura? They will migrate because you're not looking after the welfare of the people and not developing it the way Indraprastha is developed. And therefore the comparison, instead of saying, yes, things will be different for different people, my looks, my appearance, my wealth, my talents, my family, my situation, my experience, everything will be different. The kind of jobs I get, things will be different in the world. Nothing will be the same. But my comparison is creating the problem in my mind. I'm comparing all the time. ये ऐसा क्यों? मेरे लिए ऐसा क्यों नहीं? And therefore that comparison is the most odious thing which causes one's struggle in one's own mind, and then the violence outside. Violence is like ninda, insulting someone, showing them down, putting them down, telling them in a very delicate way that, oh, they're not really up to the mark, or they're not smart enough, or they're not cultured enough, not sophisticated enough, and whatever we are trying. I don't know, but this comparison is a Duryodhan disease. Now I want that in the press. I want that. So that is a form of violence. We are all capable of violence. So the person who remains steady, tulya, in insult, in praise, in blame, as well as in praise, blame and praise will come our way, is the person who is then described as gunatit. He is not of sthita pragya. So 8 things have been described so far. Pleasure and pain, dukha sukha, good and bad situations, samaloshta, good or bad possessions, let's say, things which come our way, samaloshtasma kanchana, mud or gold. Extremes have been taken, but of course everything is in between is also covered. Agreeable and disagreeable experiences. So, tulya priya priyo and ninda stuti. Very important verse. If I were you, I would probably mark it as something that I must go back to off and on sometimes. 14th chapter, 24th and 25th verses. I must go back and dwell upon them and contemplate upon them. These words of Krishna. Might like to mark them because they show us our triggers. Our triggers are hidden there. If it is ninda, if someone decides to show us down or insult us, or if we are expecting something high praise from them or approval or applause and it doesn't come our way, we feel insulted or showed down. Ninda is become our trigger, and our trigger then expresses itself in action, and that action comes from guna. So I may be rajasic or violent, like Duryodhan is the most rajasic person. Right now Arjuna is a very sattvic person. Why? Because he is contemplating, questioning, and looking within, introspecting. Why is this so? What is that truth? So that questioning and introspection and inquiry is a form of sattvic pravritti or sattvic guna. So we fall prey to Duryodhan disease. But Duryodhan doesn't know that when people in our dream, suppose we were dreaming and someone came and did something bad to us or insulted us and showed us down or slammed the door on us and said something very nasty, and I woke up, would I then upon waking begin to hate that person? I would laugh it off and say, oh, it's just a dream. Everything outside is just false. It's coming and going. Because the mind from which that other person who was insulted or whatever, that other person's mind is also not in his control. He is acting according to his own gunas. Secondly, we must remember, how can we have a hold on what other people do? So, two things that make us steady. We don't have a hold on what they are doing. They themselves are not very aware people. That's why they are doing it. And thirdly, we must remember that when bad things happen to us or things that we consider bad, of course, a real gunatit or a sthita pragya or a realized person doesn't even categorize in his mind good, bad. Good and evil, he has gone beyond that. He just says, sansar mein ho raha hai, theek hai. Jo ho raha hai, that's the nature of sansar. He has gone beyond good and evil. But we categorize everything into good and evil. So, when we say, oh, bad things are happening to me, tragic things are happening to me, unpleasant things are happening to me, then in scriptures, somewhere else it has been said, okay, even that you can consider as your pap karma being exhausted. Because we know we have come here with a bundle of prarabdha, which means that the quantum of papa karma and punya karma, which means the good and the bad which we have to suffer during that span of time, is fixed. Either through the medium of some person like a bad boss or a bad colleague in the office who's actually undercutting us or trying to show us in bad light or lying about us. It can be very, very vicious. I keep quoting the corporate. It can be vicious experience. Now all that, if it doesn't come through the medium of the boss, they are only nimitta matra. We are all instruments. They are all instruments. Then it will come through some other source. But that quantum of sorrow has to come. It will come through some neighbor or some a child or grandchild, God forbid. But it will come. So Bhagavan says, okay, if some very unpleasant thing or unhappiness or tragic circumstances happened, consider it that much less load of our pap karma in this life. That's how the great masters used to see their greatest diseases. Ramakrishna, Paramahansa and all that. Okay, I've got cancer. He had cancer. You'd say, okay, so ab itna dukh mera mit gaya. Now I'm not going to carry over so much of dukkha into my, if he was to be born again, we don't know because he was a realized soul. But we definitely are not realized, so we will carry over. And therefore that much dukkha gone. And therefore the account in the dukkha section is lessening. And the best of course is not to attach any importance to sukha or dukkha, which means that by the time we leave this body, account zero. Account zero meaning to say from our sanchit karma, the collected karma from previous lives, that will carry over the momentum. Momentum means few more lives. Thoda 2-4 और lives लगेंगी, फिर खत्म. But in this life, not collecting any more, it means not collecting any more janma maran. So Bhagavan says, when you come across unpleasant situations, which are what? Dukkha and apriya and ninda, take it as exhausting your own bundle of bad karma, pap karma. We are exhausting it all the time. So lucky. So we should consider ourselves lucky. I think there is some Mahatma who's actually said, oh, how lucky, I finished with this bad disease, cancer in this life. Now I'll go to the next life free of so much of pain. Not that they are even bothered about pain actually. We are, because we categorize everything into pain versus pleasure, sukha versus dukkha, priya, conducive versus unconducive. And that comparison and categorization itself is the basis of our unhappiness. If we don't categorize it and see it as that's the way it is, then no problems, the mind will not wrestle with it. Then Bhagwan has some more qualities up his sleeve to describe for a Gunatit person. So Arjun is got some more coming up in verse number 25. Mana pamanayo tulyaha tulyo mitrari pakshayoho. Man apaman, in honor and in dishonor. So it's a bit like ninda stuti only. Some people praising and some people insulting or blaming. Honor and dishonor, they are the same. Man apamanayo tulyaha. See the words. They're so simple to understand. Tulyo mitra ripakshayoho. Mitra, friend or foe. They behave the same towards mitra, friend or foe. So I was reading about what are the qualities of a Mahatma, let's say, or a realized person, or a high level seeker. And I don't remember that whole list. Maybe I'll retrieve that list sometime. But the couple of things that stuck with me were this, that a person who is like a Mahatma, he treats everyone the same. So if there is a housekeeping person who has come to collect garbage at the door, he will be equally courteous and respectful to him. Kaise ho? How is it? Good morning to you. Thank you for taking the garbage. You've seen some people do that. I mean, they treat them like people, exactly the same. Mahatma comes to the door. Namaskaram. How are you? Please tell me how I can do seva for you. Same. Tone is same. Respect is same. Reverence is same, because they're interacting with people. They treat everyone the same. See how our behavior changes with people whom we think are not worthy of so much of our respect, because we think they're not so sophisticated or cultured or whatever. Our behavior changes. But for a Mahatma, it doesn't. The other indicator was that Mahatma doesn't ever laze around in bed. So if it's time to get up and the eyes are open, the moment the eyes open, they shoot out of bed. Once Modi ji had said that's how he gets up. It's a habit with him. So the moment the eyes are open means out of bed, finished, no lazing around. And the other indicator that I remember was such a person sits, even when he is with himself, alone, he sits, his posture is as if he's sitting in the most honored company. So suppose there was the Dalai Lama or someone sitting in front of us in the drawing room, how would we be seated? In the same manner, that person is seated all the time, even when he is alone. How nice. I'll dig out some more from that list I've seen somewhere. But in the meantime, Krishna is saying, look, my list is already exhaustive enough. It covers everything. Yes, it does. Man and apman, honor and dishonor, be the same, na? For the same reasons that we have mentioned before. It is our karma. Okay, that much dukkha has to come. That person we have no control over. So let it pass. Let it pass. If the moment we react, we are collecting more karma for ourselves. He is the same with friends or foes. Mitra and Ari. And that is the enemies. Mitra and Ari, Pakshayo, the same. Sarva Rambha Parityagi, makes no effort. Arambha means making new projects, new plans, new actions. For what? Parityagi, he has given it up. Why? Because he has no desire for putreshna, for the progeny, for children and family. I mean, more and more desires for them, for their success and for their wealth. Putreshna, vitteshna, for my own wealth and things that wealth can buy. That person has actually exhausted his desires. So vitteshna and lokeshna, has no desire for people to be his follower or believers in him or approvers of him or praise people who praise, lokeshna. So he has no lokeshna, vitteshna. Vitta means wealth, lok means people, putra means progeny. No putreshna, vitteshna, or at least if it is weakened, lokeshna and all, at least if it's in a weakened state, then he has no desire. Why? Desire to start something new, I mean. Here it says Sarva Arambha Parityagi, gives up all desire to start something new, some new action. Why? Because the logic is simple. All our actions start because we have a thought for enhancing putreshna, vitteshna or lokeshna. Only in these three spheres we have some desire to enhance it or to make it better or to change it. and therefore we take some new actions. He's saying they don't take any new action because these are the three areas they've already either weakened or given up. Gunatita sa uchyate. Such a person is a gunatit, gone beyond his three gunas. Now, man upon honor, dishonor, accepts dishonor also gracefully. And now, having said this, Bhagwan has actually has said that if you have control over these 8 things, dukkha, sukha, getting things which you think are worthless or very valuable, and situations which are conducive and unconducive, and ninda, stuti, praise or blame. 8 situations. In these 8, if you can keep your mind cool, collected, unswerved, unmoved, quiet, steady, Bhagwan says you can control anything in this sansar. Then the sansar cannot trouble you. So this is a magic bullet for us. Control these 8 things, or at least watch ourselves in these 8 situations and say, okay, I have control over this, means I have control over self and sansar. Wow, that's a formula for success, for going success, that is to go beyond grief. The whole story of Gita starts with, I want to go beyond struggle and grief. And your formula is ready here. And Bhagwan has some more hints when he says, how does one actually go beyond the gunas? Then Bhagwan says in verse number 26, Mam cha yo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. It's like Arjun saying, yes, thank you for this formula, and I will work on the formula, but please, is there any simpler formula also? There's always that one student, if you've been teachers, there's always that one student somewhere at the back of the class who says, ma'am, please can you give me a shortcut to this exam? Arjun is probably like that, and Krishna has understood the weakness. Now Arjun stands for mankind, and the Lord is addressing mankind having understood the weakness of man, because it's not easy for us to go to the highest level, to meditate and to have complete control over our senses, which are constantly reacting to the sansar of man, apman, priya, apriya, and ninda, stuti, labh, alabh, that is profit and loss. We are constantly reacting. In meditation, Bhagwan has said in the 3rd chapter, look, if you do dhyan, you can easily go beyond it. That formula also didn't work for us, or may work if we work on it. So Bhagwan knows our weakness. So he says, okay, I'm going to tell you, Mam cha yo vyabhicharena. If you can have total bhakti yogena in me Krishna. See, Bhagwan comes down to bhakti sooner or later, because we don't have the capacity of that sukshma mind to grasp the highest infinite, because we are not capable of that kind of meditation and steadiness and focus, because our meditation and our thoughts and our focus are constantly out there in the world. So Bhagwan says, chalo theek hai, I'll give you something which is concrete, like bhakti in me, Krishna avatar, and if you can focus on that with total bhakti, but I want unswerving bhakti. I don't want bhakti which is, is this avatar true? Is Bhagwan true? All the time if you are doubting, it won't. Avyabhicharena means unswerving bhakti I want. Krishna also demands, I want that devotion from you. Sevate. Naso gunan samite tyaitan. That person, if you are that kind of person, you can cross the 3 gunas and Brahma bhuyaya kalpate, for liberation. Liberation means you will not gain just Krishna, he is saying, you will gain Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. We know very well that Brahma is the unmanifest Brahman, the Brahma, the unmanifest Param Tattva, unmanifest, and Krishna is manifest as an avatar. So if I pray to Krishna, who is manifest, how will I attain that highest unmanifest Brahma? How is that happening? There we can say, one example given by the masters is that, look, when you take two pieces of wood and you rub them together like the caveman used to do to create fire, the fire which comes out of that friction is manifest. Right. But when that manifest fire is something you can worship and you can actually use for your purposes, including your worship. But where did it come from? It means that that wood had fire in unmanifest, avyakta form already within it. It cannot give forth what is not within it. So it's hard for us to say, oh, wood, is it fire? No, I don't believe it's fire. Then I say, I don't believe it. So Bhagavan says, okay, you don't believe it, it's tough for you. Then in the fire form or in the Vyakta form, the Krishna form or the Saguna, let's call it Saguna Sakar. Saguna Sakar means the one who has Guna and Akar. That Krishna Tattva, you can worship me. And then, this is a very practical method Bhagavan is giving. And this is given to most people who have very simple minds, who have not reached that highest level of knowledge, of Gyan, like us. Or even rustic minds. Chalo Bhagwan ki prarthana karo. At least the mind begins to believe in it. Otherwise, you look at the piece of wood and say, no, I don't believe there's fire in it. So Bhagwan says, okay, I'm the avatar, see the fire? That's it. That is the manifest form. Also in the 9th chapter, Bhagwan had said something like this when he had said, Maya tadamidam sarvam jagadavyakta murtina. I am that Sakar. Sakar means I have Akar, I have form, and I am manifest, but I am the same Brahma, that same cosmic manifestation. I am that same unmanifest in this manifest form. Maya tadamidam sarvam. In my unmanifest form, I pervade the entire cosmic sansar. Bhagavan said in the 9th chapter. You can't see me. You can't sense me. I'm there everywhere around you. In you, around you, and in every tattva, in every piece of stone, in every pebble, and in every person around you, and in you, in every breath of yours. In the entire cosmic, manifest form of cosmic universe. Manifest means visible. I'm there, but I am unmanifest. He has said, Maya tadamidam sarvam. I'm there. Sarvam jagadavyakta murtina. So believe me that you can reach that highest Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. You can attain that highest if you even worship me in the Sagun Sagar or Sagun Sakar or manifest form, as in bhakti. So Bhagavan gives a ready formula for all kinds of seekers. All kinds of seekers. So that no one is able to reject the highest truth at any point of time and say, okay, I'm getting off this bandwagon. I don't understand this spirituality. I don't understand these scriptures. Why? Bhagavan is here. That's why Gita is so popular. Bhagavan says, no, I won't let you get off. You, in some way or the other, through Gyan, through Dhyan, through Karma, through Bhakti, you will find me. As long as you hold on to any one of these, hold on to me. He says you have to hold on to me, otherwise then it won't work. So he has given the last final trick. So what is happening is that Arjun is asking, Guna ke atit kaise jaye? And that Guna are playing on our thoughts. Which means what? The thoughts are flowing according to our senses. Our senses first are flowing out in the world, and then the thoughts are chasing it. And therefore, everything that we do in our nature, so my nature may be sattvic or rajasic or very tamasic, that nature of mine, that the guna nature, not the true nature, is actually fed on thoughts. Careful, think about this. Whatever becomes my personality is actually fed on the fuel of thoughts. So the kind of thoughts I have is me. As your thoughts, so your personality. So you are. As your thoughts, so are you, is what it has been said here. And the thoughts, of course, then of course shape the mind. So as the thoughts, so the mind. And as the mind, so I am. So how can we say I cannot control what is happening? Of course I can, because if I know where my thoughts are wandering, it's impossible then that I cannot rein it in. So it's like the story of the two fakirs. It's similar to the Mela story of the king who says, you must find me. It's the same story actually. The two fakirs who are going through this weekly market, which is set up every week in the middle of the village fair, and that fair also has lots of entertainment and people shouting at the top of their voices to sell their goods and their wares, and people moving about and jostling in great merriment to find this object and that object, to buy this and that, and of course their children also screaming in excitement. There's a lot of noise. The weekly fair is chaotic, and in the midst of all this, the first fakir says to the second one, oh, we have to head in that direction. He points out and says, the masjid is there. The second fakir says, oh, how did you know that the masjid is in that direction and we have to head there? It's so noisy here. So the first fakir says, oh, I can hear the sound of the azan. The azan is now, when the devout are called for prayer, that's the azan from the rooftop of the masjid. He says, of course you can hear the azan. I can hear it. Then let's head in that direction. So, what does this prove? This proves that the man's mind, the first fakir's mind, went to the sound of that which he was looking for. His thoughts then were naturally tuned towards that azan, and therefore he said, yes, I will go to the masjid. But the same azan was being played out, and the hundreds of people who were jostling had no clue about it. So the second fakir says, no, that's not true. So the first fakir says, okay, let me tell you that where your attention is and where your thought is who you become. I'll prove it to you. So he went to fakirs and swamis are not allowed to deal in money. So he went to this little shopkeeper and he says, just lend me a few coins, I'll give it back to you, I just want to show something. He picked up a handful of coins and from a height he dropped them. And these coins went tinkling and rolling all over the place. Suddenly there were about 24 people around that area who suddenly stopped. In the midst of what they were doing, buying, selling, looking, shopping, they stopped. Their attention went to the sound of tinkling coins. Why? Because that's where the attention is, that's where the attraction is, let's put it that way. So the attraction, the attention also dictates where the thought will go. And then that thought will of course design our personality, our guna. So in the locality where we live, think about it. Wherever we live, in Bangalore, in Delhi, in Hyderabad, in the US, in Bombay, in Chennai, in Timbuktu, in Jammu Kashmir, wherever we are, wherever we have lived for any amount of time, 1 or 2 years, in that place you will find definitely there are pubs and drinking houses and nightclubs and nightclubs and bars and sweet houses and malls and boutiques. Oh, boutiques. My mind already wants to run in that direction. But in the midst of all this, have you found somewhere tucked away in the corner of these noisy, shining, well-lit towers, there has to be some temple, some center of learning where someone is teaching something or the other of the scriptures, or just a temple, or a church, or a mosque, or a masjid, somewhere tucked away. Have we found those? Or in and around that area, some place of natural beauty, a waterfall, or a small wood, or a nature walk, a trail which somebody has marked out. Have we found those? If we are nature lovers, we'll know all the trails around our area. If we are seeking the truth, we will know, yes, there is a masjid or a gurudwara or some center of learning over here. If we are scholars, we'll say, I know of a professor who works in a certain college and she takes evening classes here. How? If I like drinking, I'll know of 3 names of pubs or bars in that area. If I'm fond of buying lots of new dresses for every occasion, a new gown, a new dress or something, I will know. If somebody tells me ki kahan milta hai, I will know the names of boutiques. And so you go to a person and say, oh, I'm from out of town, I'm visiting my mummy here or my aunt here, And so I just need to go to the beauty parlor. Can you suggest a few names? You may be at a loss if you have not been sitting at beauty parlors. And you say, okay, I'll find out from someone, please. I'm sorry, but I really don't know where the beauty parlors are in my own locality. Or I may know of 3 names and say, oh, this is the best. And I may give a very critical, I have surveyed all of them. It depends. Depends on where our attraction is, and there the thoughts go. And so this fakir says, see, these 24 people, they could not hear the azan, but they heard the sound of the tinkling coins. And that happens to all of us. So what we contemplate on is what we become. So in meditation, what happens is that there is a focus. Focus on what? If it is an Sakar, Sagun, Krishna, then it is a form of Krishna. And if even in that focus, when we transcend the mind and the thought, then there is a vacuum created. In that vacuum, where the mind and the thought, which is actually driving our personality, when that vacuum is created, something has to fill it. That great infinite fills the vacuum. Try it out in deep meditation. When the thought cease, when the mind has stopped troubling us, when the situations and people and objects with all their daily impinging on our minds has stopped, then that quietness, that silence and that vacuum is filled by a rushing in of that infinite, which is my own true nature. That's what is, I think, called finding your own true nature, that Atma and Paramatma are the same. That same infinite comes flooding in. So you are the infinite, the Avyaya, the Shashvat, the immortal, Amrita, that means the undying, that we know. But we can know that only in meditation, not in the noise and cacophony of the sansar, of the marketplace. So for us, the world is a marketplace itself, yes? This is what Bhagavan has explained, exactly this. When we slip into silence, in bhakti of Krishna, he says, you can be a bhakt of mine. And that's what happens. He has explained in the last verse of 14th chapter, number 27. Brahmano hi pratisthaham. Brahma, abode. I am the abode of that great infinite. Amritasya vyayasya cha. Shashvatasya cha dharmasya. That everlasting, eternal dharma is me. Sukhasya kantikasya cha. And that is absolute. Absolute. Sukha, absolute. So Sanatan Dharma, let's put it in simple terms. Every other dharma, the Abrahamic religions basically, each of them has a leader, someone who has sort of invented a certain doctrine or dogma or dictum and a way of life and a philosophy and explains it in certain books like maybe the Zend-Avesta or the Bible or the Quran or whatever. And there's a book and there is a founder. In Sanatan Dharma, you will not be able to pinpoint one book or one founder. Why? Why is this so? The reason is very simple, and we have talked about it before. The reason is that the rishis and the mahatmas who tuned into finding that highest truth, and in deep meditation, when that truth was revealed to them, that means it already existed. You cannot discover what does not exist. So the discovery was already of something that already existed. From when? From time immemorial, from even before time existed. That means it always exists. It is Sanatan. Therefore this dharma is called Sanatan, which means Rishi or no Rishi, Mahatma or no Mahatma, scriptures or no scriptures, you write it down or not, you read about it or not, you understand it or not, the dharma, the truth exists. It's a bit like saying, before Newton discovered gravity, did gravitational pull exist in the universe? So we'll say, oh, what an absurd question. Yes, the absurdity of the highest absolute truth is that we don't accept it as forever existing, and the absurdity of questioning it. We don't question gravity. We say, Newton did not invent it. He discovered it. The discovery is made of that which already exists. from time immemorial, Sanatan. Sanatan, where time has even before time. So that's why this is called, it's not Hinduism. It's not an ism, because any ism that you see in the world, communism, communist philosophy or any philosophy is a bundle of doctrines and dogmas and dictums and rituals maybe even added on to it, and therefore it becomes crystallized into these outer forms, and we give more importance to the outer form of rituals and practices and dictums and dogma, and we forget about the essence of any religion. Take any religion, we've forgotten about the essence. तो सुधा कैसे पढ़ना है, आज़ान की बांग कैसे देना है, या ये पूजा कैसे करना है, दिवाली की पूजा कैसे करना है, ये सब rituals and practices become they are the forms, the outer forms. The essence and the substance is completely forgotten. And therefore J. Krishnamurti, my favorite philosopher, used to say, the moment you organize religion, it's dead. No, sorry. He said, whenever you organize truth, the truth, it becomes dead. So I'll end with a joke, but for a wrap up, I'll just say what we have seen. We have seen in the 13th chapter that Kshetragyam, matter and spirit, when they assemble together as an assemblage, they give birth to Jiva and the Sansar. Okay, Jiva is matter, Sansar is matter. It's an assemblage of matter and spirit. 13th chapter. 14th chapter, this particular chapter said that matter which you are talking about, the Jiva, is expressing itself through many gunas. That means that there is a variety and a variation and lots of diversity in the gunas of this piece of matter called Jiva. That doesn't mean that Atma has many variations. Atma is one. The Jiva, because of the gunas, has this appearance, outer appearance of diversity. कि हम ऐसे हैं भाई, वो वैसे हैं, वो देश वाले ऐसे हैं, उनका कल्चर वैसा है, उनका रिलीजन ऐसा है, ये मेरा देश, ये तेरा देश, ये मेरा रिलीजन, ये तो उनकी प्रैक्टिसेस तो बड़ी अजीब है भाई. All this comparison goes on only at the outer level, at the exterior level. At the substratum level, everything is the same, which 13th chapter has already mentioned, right? Kshetra, Kshetragyam. Kshetra, Kshetragyam, matter and spirit. 14th chapter talks about matter and its diversity, and 15th chapter, the next one, talks about the nature of spirit. Details about the nature of spirit. So I'm going to end with a joke as I promised. This is the favorite joke of J. Krishnamurti. He said that the devil and the angel were walking down the beach once, and suddenly the angel found something shiny on the beach, and he picked it up and he said, "Oh, I have found the truth, the absolute truth." And it was so. So that shining thing in his hand was the absolute truth. The angel found it. So all the followers of the devil came running up to the devil and said, "Look, you are going to be out of business. If man finds the truth, the angel is going to share it with man, right? Mankind. You're going to be out of business." Who? The devil. Do something about it right now. Because when we find the truth, there is no evil. So the devil goes out of business. So even before the angel could share it with mankind, that highest absolute truth, the devil said, "Oh, don't worry. I will never go out of business." Why? Because I am just going to tell this little angel to organize the truth. So the joke is a bit subtle. It means that truth is there and the devil says, "I will let him organize it." That means build temples and rituals and dictums and dogma and make it so diverse that mankind will be confused कि form क्या है और substance क्या है. That's where we are today. That organizing the truth into temples and scriptures and babas and mera truth and tera truth has completely confused mankind. So devil is in business right now. He says, yeah, just organize truth, into something into this kind of a formal structure and finish, end of truth. Man will never be able to find it. That's why we are floundering. Okay, so I'm going to end here with the chapter 14, which is Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Gunatraya Vibhaga Yogo Namaha Chaturdashodhyayah. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.